It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha, it's Feedback Friday. And this is what happens when Leanna has, like, time to kill in a week. Instead of just basic 10-minute makeup, we do, like, navy eyeliner and, like, goth lips, and we get the Disney villain ladies shirt. And yeah, I read about Tired Girl makeup on social media and like Jenna Ortega, and it was like Thursday, and I was like, I'm gonna embrace the tired. And then for some odd reason, I did like freaking like J-pop blush. I don't know why. I put on blush. It's like, this looks too 80s. We're gonna modernize it. Yatta! Maybe I've just been listening to that song from Death Stranding too. I have no idea what that chick is saying. I have no idea what's going on, but it's fun. So there's a whole bunch of cars outside. Oh, I thought it was a truck, but no, it's just two cars parked side by side. Anyway, it's Friday, and I'll get out of the way a comment first that I don't technically, because it wasn't the main topic of the video, but I do have a commitment to facts. And this person, the only thing he commented on the Gina Carano video, was it Gina Carano video? Or was it no, it was Wellness Wednesday. It was the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Totally missing the general point of the video. It's the only thing he commented on, but I do want to clarify it because if people think, oh my God, she's lying, no, misinformation, ah! And I didn't actually say he crossed state lines with a rifle. I just said he crossed state lines, and that was one of the weird things about the video, about that case. Mom lived in Illinois. Dad lived in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kyle Rittenhouse lived with his mother. He crossed the line. The rifle did not. And so if people are gonna fixate on that, I'll just go, yeah, okay. Not important to the main point. The other things he said is he was allowed to possess the rifle and testified he would have carried a pistol if that was legal. CNN continued reporting as facts after they were shown to be false. I believe the rifle was gotten via straw purchase and that was prosecuted. Didn't he shoot 3 people and one just lost a bicep? I don't know why this is relevant to my central point when I said based on the law, he didn't commit murder. The purpose of the video is other people being allowed to have understandable positions that differ from mine. If you like this kind of content, or if you just want to support me through the in these moments where people just decide to fixate on something that is not the central point, which means it doesn't refute the central point. So why get so upset about it? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Or just like and subscribe to this channel. That helps a lot too. That is good vibes, not bad vibes. But yeah, I've never understood. I do understand it, I should say. I just don't agree with the point of taking something that does not change the overall point, fixating on that and only that. To me, it just seems like you're not someone to invest in on this issue. But I also believe that, okay, facts are facts. It doesn't invalidate my point at all to go, person crossed state line, rifle did not. That is a fact. That's sort of a point in the column of the fact that that is even the fact that somebody got so incensed with that. Oh, somebody just got shot in the bicep. This is why reasonable people can have serious issues with US gun culture, especially since I did say that I see why he was acquitted. You gotta chill. Now, somebody else, and this was on Wednesday's video, by the way, but someone else sort of, we'll segue into this. He said, I admit that I way too often let my emotions get the better of me and I keep trying to avoid it, but it's like a built-in hair trigger reaction. Access to mental health care has become a rare resource in the UK because of a lack of funding and growing mental health issues across the country. Health is for the wealthy and not for the rest of us. And that's a problem in every country to some degree, and rather the UK is especially bad. But that's why I started doing that content, because the idea of having a hair trigger, there are things you can do to reduce that without having to go to expensive therapy or sit on a wait list. And it does come down to being gentle with yourself. And that's why I offer worldwide affordable services with peer counseling. Because that's just a question of, if there is something that does trigger an intense emotional reaction in you, that's not your emotions getting the better of you. That's your emotions trying to tell you something. And instead of trying to avoid the strong emotional reaction, examine it. Go, why is this so important to me? You know, like, why do I get so when someone doesn't engage with the central point of something I'm saying? And I know it's because nobody likes being misrepresented, especially just so somebody can lash out at CNN. And two, this is why these things get so messy and why people don't want to talk about these issues in a public forum, because you get too many comments like that and it just becomes not worth it. If something doesn't invalidate the central premise, it may be an interesting point. I felt the need to clarify because of that. But if that is the only thing someone is dealing with, then they've missed the point. And when it comes to something like gaming, where I think we can do something collectively about it, as opposed to something like a trial or something like wars, more on that in a bit, we can't. If something's before the courts are going to decide. We can't do anything about that immediately. Wars are failures of diplomacy and the social order. Once that failure has happened, all the screaming and yelling and protesting and all that stuff, it's not going to work. People go to war because, you know, the standard protocol is when peace is more expensive than war, there's war. When war is more expensive than peace, there's peace. And people just going in the streets of America and Canada and Australia and the UK. Well, Hamas and the Israeli government don't give a shit about that. They don't. They just don't. Unfortunately, the world now is such that if the US stops supplying weapons, then more people are going to die. Because they'll just get dumb bombs instead of smart bombs. Because, and personally for me, sitting here in Canada, seeing what's going on with the US right now, I personally think it would be great if US citizens could do something about issues more close to home that actually are going to matter, like people getting kicked off federal assistance funding grants, getting cut, art and culture getting censored, based on, you know, whoever is the political tyrant of the time. These are all things that you can do something about by actually engaging with your local congressperson. Here it's a member of parliament, right? Foreign wars. I don't say this because I don't care, but that is a motherhood cause that takes so long to do something about. The war will be over before your protests can be effective. And I mean, the ongoing protest to the draft that ended, was it 73? Something like that. But that took decades and decades and decades and decades to repeal. Unless a war is going to go on for decades. And I mean, okay, some do. Technically, there are still troops in Korea. But the more you learn about the world, the more you learn things are not always so simple. And the only reason I'm talking about this at all is that somebody made such an absolutely charming comment that I'm going to talk about something that I try not to talk about because it's usually no win. The person left this incredibly lengthy preamble in the Gina Carano video about how they're not sure they've 100% got my view on the topic of Gaza understood. They said, I think it's he, but like a solid 80%, but that's an easy XCOM miss. And I was so utterly charmed by the easy XCOM miss comment that I'm going to say what I actually think. And the reason I don't say this is it makes no one happy. And the reason it makes no one happy is because the sides on all of this stuff tend to be based on a false certainty that, you know, like I talked about with Why I Keep Kosher. And I appreciate that people were like, that's really interesting. That makes me happy. Because that's a little scary to talk about things like that in public, I'll admit. But, you know, I avoid false certainty like the plague. One, because I'm a reporter. Two, because I'm a peer counselor. False certainty is death in both jobs. You're not good at your job if you engage in false certainty. But I wrote a little bit out because I wanted to get my views clear before I started talking. And this idea of what are my views? Do I think there's a genocide in Gaza? Do I think this? Do I think that? And the truth is, I'm not on the ground there. And I have done enough reporting. I have seen enough reporting where I was there and I saw it and the reporting was wrong. You know, I am not there. I can't say for certain what's happening on the ground. We know some of the photos have been staged. We know some early reporting has been wrong. And if you don't believe me about the photos, there was just a major retraction in the New York Times that a boy photographed with one of the horrible famine photos. I saw this photo and I'm like, one, this looks really bad. Two, that kid looks kind of old. Turns out the kid had MS. He was ill. Lack of access to food didn't help. But the shocking extremity of the photo, that was not a typical result. And the boy's mother did not disclose he had MS when the photo was taken, got caught. New York Times published a retraction, but only like 50,000 people saw the retraction. 5 million people saw the photo. Stuff like this in all conflicts. All conflicts. It's true of Ukraine and Russia too. Both sides obfuscate, shade the truth, distribute propaganda, sometimes flat out lie. The first casualty of war is truth. And war never changes. Okay? I added that. That was an ad lib. The truth of a war often doesn't come out while the war is happening. I mean, a lot of the horrific shit that we found out about, you know, the former Yugoslavia area came out afterwards. I mean, that was fucking horrific. And people born, you know, in the 2000s don't even know it happened a lot of the time. It's amazing how much that conflict has just sort of disappeared from awareness. And because I have seen how rapidly things change, how often initial reporting is wrong, I wait. I wait for the reports after the war is over. And, you know, the last two wars in Gaza, it was genocide, genocide, genocide. And then the report comes out and says, well, both sides committed war crimes, but no genocide. And no one fucking believes it. For or against. No one believes the report because they're so set in their opinions that nothing the report does any good. And no report is perfect. But I do believe that the people that do those reports, they have their own biases, but I think they want to get to the truth. Reporting on these conflicts, on the other hand, tends to be extremely biased. People go in there supporting one side or the other. Sometimes it's just flat out propaganda because that's what happens. And so, what I know is I don't know. And what my opinion is I don't know. I lean one way or another. I mean, when NBC goes, oh no, there's no systemic stealing of aid, whereas the BBC reported that, oh no, their sources say, yes, Hamas is stealing aid in sufficient quantities and not only taking it for themselves, but reselling it at inflated prices. Who do you believe? You got one side saying this and the other side saying that. And the reporter in me is going, that's all I can say. Am I there? Do I have any first party sources? Is it triple sourced, which no one fucking does anymore? No. So all I know is I don't know. And because I'm not certain, I'm not willing to go to war myself with other people about it. Because I don't know. What's the point? And I question anyone who doesn't take that view. What I question is, why does someone need to be certain that horrible atrocities are definitely happening when we can't stop it? And this is a conflict that's been going on at least since 1920, because the strategy at the time was the same as India. Right? Make Jews and Arabs hate each other. In India, it was make Muslims and Hindus hate each other to weaken both sides so that they'll be more malleable for colonial powers. And because that's the history of this divide, I will not participate in that. I just won't. I mean, I will say that there are much larger famines going on in the world because that we know. Right? We know that. And that's something good. It's like, hey, there's a famine in Sudan. There's a famine in Yemen. There's a famine in Afghanistan. There's a famine in Somalia. Can we directly do anything more about this? Not directly. No. Right? UN food program's got a lot of problems. What we can do is inform ourselves and get a bigger picture so that when it does come time to vote, we don't become easily manipulated single issue voters. And we look at the general track record of various candidates regarding making unpopular choices, not just telling us what we want to hear and having a general track record of good judgment, not perfect judgment, but good judgment on the issues that we care about. And that's really all we can do. And I do have one person I know who just, assiduously defends his right to not vote. And I said to him the other day that is your right. Not voting is your right where you live. This guy's an American. And I will fiercely defend your right to not vote if you don't want to. And even that's an unpopular view. People say if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, okay, I understand that. I don't necessarily agree because the complaint is there's nobody I actually want to vote for. I think every single one of these jokers is going to make a decision that's not in my best interest. I mean, how can I tell somebody they're wrong about that? I can talk to them about individual issues and this person listens very intently. We had a great conversation about the Gina Carano thing and how, something I didn't say in the video, which the treatment of Gina Carano and the treatment of Pedro Pascal, it's apples and oranges because Pedro Pascal's the lead of the series. A better comparison is Gina Carano and Bill Burr. Bill Burr has just, and he's an American. Well, Pedro Pascal, I think, is an American citizen now, but he was born in Chile, right? Bill Burr is just an American, and he has said some very controversial stuff and squat, and Bill Burr doesn't have a transgender sister who's directly affected by these things. So that's a more apples to apples comparison. And he agreed. We can have really good conversations about this stuff. But he is somebody who you really got to give him facts, not vibes. And I respect the hell out of that. That's where I come from as well. I refuse to fight to the death about things I have no direct knowledge of, because I know that even when someone is not deliberately trying to deceive people, reporters get lied to. I've even seen it that reporters submit a piece. It's happened to me. God, during the Gamergate controversy, I published an article was that the one on the National Post? And they put a Gamergate reference into it that I didn't say. The editor added that reference, put words in my mouth, and I took shit for it. And I said to the editor, I didn't say that. What are you doing? Like, holy fucking hell. It was removed on the online edition, but of course you can't retract the print edition. So I know what happened, the number of things that an editor has tweaked, and it might just be one or two words, but it changes the entire fucking meaning. I know this process. So I wait, and I read the history books, and I read the reports, and I go to the first party sources, and it's fucking boring. But, I forget the name of the principle, but when a news source is really, really terrible at reporting something that you know a lot about, why would you believe it on anything else? And yeah, true. Okay. Like, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. If you know someone is particularly strong, or a particular columnist is strong on one thing, but something else is weaker, that's fine. But I'm just not going to brawl about anything that I'm not certain about. And personally, I don't want there to be a genocide in Gaza or the West Bank, personally. And I've said this on a radio and podcast I do, that I think there's a better case for genocide in the West Bank than Gaza, because Israel wasn't attacked by the West Bank. But it's all going to come out. I think. I don't know. I'm not going to go to war with somebody. If somebody categorically disagrees with me, all right. Because I don't know. I'm not there. And, even if you are there, you can't be everywhere at once. And that's the importance of these reports after the fact. I also do not believe that blaming only one side for any war actually stops the war. Because again, when war is more expensive than peace, there's peace. When peace is more expensive than war, there's war. You've got to give both sides reasons to come to the table to stop the violence. Because if one side is just getting hammered on and hammered on and hammered on, the other side is getting everything they want. The enemy is getting punished. They're winning. Because most wars now are as much propaganda wars as, wars for territory and blood. No one stops when they think they're winning. And if it's just, it's just Ukraine's fault. Or, it's just Israel's fault. Some people say, no, Israel's more like Russia. The point is, it doesn't matter who you blame. I mean, what do the crackpot nationalists in the Knesset say? It's all Hamas, it's all Hamas, it's all Hamas. They keep saying that so they don't have to stop, right? You gotta hold both sides accountable. And the truth is, like, Hamas attacked on October 7th. And if that gets forgotten, there's no reason for Hamas to stop fighting. They're getting everything they want. Israel looks awful. Public sentiment towards Israel is falling across the world. And that's, if you look at why Hamas was founded, that is what it's about. They do not just believe in a homeland for the Palestinian people. They believe that the Zionist threat, which is any homeland where Jewish people are safe, they oppose that. And that is not saying Palestinians oppose that. The people in the West Bank lived mostly peacefully, right? Run by the Palestinian Authority, who's corrupt as fuck. That's another problem. Like, who's the alternative? And then they started arming settlers, and they're fucking setting churches on fire. That's fucked, you know? And the truth is, there is no plan for a post-Hamas Gaza. And until we get that, there isn't really going to be peace. What I do strongly believe is that Palestine isn't free under Hamas any more than it's free under Israel. And somebody in the region who is not Israel has to be prepared to step up and take responsibility for the people there so that Hamas can be disarmed and government transfers. And that's where you get into problems, because if you look at the history of the treatment of Palestinians in places like Jordan, places like Egypt, it ain't great either. I mean, tens of thousands of Palestinians just disappeared from places like Jordan and Syria. Nobody really, everybody can go Israel bad, Israel bad, Israel bad. But nobody wants to step up and take responsibility for what comes next. They want it to be Israel's problem. Well, if it's Israel's problem, then Israel is just going to be an occupier forever. We've got to hand that off. And until we've got someone willing to do it, the problem is just going to kick down the field, right? That is really the problem that needs to be solved. Not pointing fingers, not now. The report will happen after the war. We'll find out. The people that deserve to be punished for that probably never will be. That's not because I want it to. That's just the state of the world. But tearing each other apart does nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I was one of those people who hopped up and down and set my hair on fire about things, you know, in the past. And I learned it's incredibly ineffective. I don't think it's ill-meaning. But it's amazing to me how many people end up descending into anti-Semitic tropes, like, you know, the Jews control the media, when this comes up. And at that point, I'm just like, hold up, no. I mean, the reason I started off correcting the thing about Kenosha and Kyle Rittenhouse is because no skin off my nose doesn't change my argument in the slightest. So yeah, okay, fine. I'll clarify that, no problem. It's so simple. And yet when people are emotionally attached to this stuff, when they need full certainty, because then you're on the right side of history, or, oh, look, you're good people fighting the bad people. When you deal with as many people as I do, you realize it's really not that simple. That person next to you with the keffiyeh and the Free Palestine flag, they could be a horrible fucking person who beats their girlfriend. It's not good people and bad people. It's how do we solve this fucking problem? That's really what it comes down to. That's what I care about. And tearing each other apart on social media doesn't solve a goddamn thing. It never has. It just takes people like Gina Carano and trashes an otherwise promising career over very little. Why the fuck do I care what she thinks about hating people with other political views? I don't care. Oh, but you should, right? And that's where we get to the arrogance versus strength, right? And one person says, isn't arrogance more usually contrasted with confidence? And I don't know, maybe. To me, true confidence, it's a first principle, right? Confidence is a byproduct of strength, you know? Am I super confident on YouTube talking about Gaza? Especially when I'm not picking one side or another. I'm like, nah, I think y'all are all fucked. Right? I'm going to sit in my corner like the Punisher in Civil War, the comic, and go, I'm here on this one side just because y'all have me, but I don't agree with anything any of you are doing. The picking a side here is just wrong. It's going to exacerbate the conflict, not end it faster. That pleases no one. But, you know, like I said in a previous video, I'm fortunate enough to have a job that doesn't require mass adoration on the internet. And I can say this stuff. And sure, people calling me a baby killer hurts my feelings. People just going full-blown anti-Semitic. And no, I do not think criticism of the Israeli government is anti-Semitic. I don't, for the record. But some people go further, like Jews control the media, like Jews do this, Jews do that. And then it hurts. And that, you know, that's why I talked about why I keep kosher. Because not every person who practices these things believes they are getting God points. It's actually the exact opposite of what it's designed to do. And not even various Jewish groups agree on this one. And so when you start, the minute you start going, the Zionists, that's Hamas's language. All Zionism is, for the vast majority of people who self-identify as Zionists, is a belief in a Jewish homeland. Some people say it is a requirement that it is in the historic Israel area. That's it. It's got nothing to do with borders. It's got nothing to do with the two-state solution or a one-state solution. That is it. And you start going the Zionists, you're basically saying that, you know, Jewish people are the only people in the world who don't deserve a religious homeland. Do you want to say that? If you don't, then stop saying that, right? And I don't self-identify. I don't know. On the one hand, I see the practical purpose of Israel because I know people who are alive because they got out of Russia through Israel. Because of the automatic citizenship. They escaped pogroms. Or rumored pogroms. On the other hand, I'm really, really uncomfortable of theocracies of any kind. They're great in fantasy worlds, but I probably wouldn't feel comfortable in one even if I was the right group. Because we see what happens, you know, the noose tightens and tightens and tightens. And, oh, it's not just the identity. Now it's the practice. And you can't resist. You must do the practices. You know, it's the difference between choosing to cover your head because you're, you know, Muslim or a nun. Choosing that and being forced to. I am all for someone doing that by choice. I am totally against someone being forced to. So it's complicated, right? And this stuff is really painful. And I can show up here and talk with a certain degree of confidence because I'm strong enough to know that people are going to shit on me for this because I didn't pick a side. But I'm not arrogant enough to engage in that false certainty. So I would argue that aggression is the byproduct of arrogance. Confidence is the byproduct of strength. Because I don't have to come here and blast people. It's the reason I don't do the goddamn debates. They're a waste of fucking time. I can't even stand listening to them anymore. That's why I'm doing things like men liking stuff. Because that's where I want happiness. I want, like, you know, I want points of commonality. Because that's proven to be the thing that reduces conflict. Okay, what can we get back to that we agree on? And that's why I sort of took the view I did of, okay, well, if we can agree to this one war crime, why do we have to fight over other war crimes? A war crime's a war crime. And somebody decided to go, oh no, this is why I think, kind of missing the point. But again, the XCOM comment was so damn adorable. I loved it. You know, right headspace. Let's go. I'll nudge this boundary right now because this person really seems to be coming at me in good faith. And that's what we want to reward. And there were a lot of other comments I wanted to get to, but I'll close on this one because it makes sense. Actually, there's a couple. Because one person asked me, you know, is it bad that Gina Carano didn't get an apology? And I thought about this. And if it's a choice between an apology and my career, well, I'll take my career. And a lot of the things, I mean, you know, my whole perspective on government regulation in video games, I took a lot of shit for that. And then the OSA thing kicked in, and I was really surprised. People didn't know that was coming. And remember I said during the whole Stop Killing Games shitting on me thing, that it was the UK petition that I was especially worried about. And that was because of this OSA shit. Like, do you really want to give them more? Do you really want to give them more things to shovel shit into? And I took a lot of crap for that. And a lot of people said, I see your point now. Maybe 3 or 4 actually apologized. And for being too aggressive, for essentially bullying me. And do I have moments where I'm like, sure. But it's not really reasonable to expect most people to apologize for a fuck up of this magnitude. Now, there may have been ones behind the scenes. We don't know. But public apologies, the best apology that Gina Carano could get is if we get Cara Dune back on The Mandalorian. And let's face it, certain people in the trans community will be pissed. But, and again, I'm already canceled in that community, so I don't give a shit anymore. If we bring Cara Dune back, first of all, she's great in the role. But also, this is somebody who, again, Pedro Pascal has a trans sister. Not transistor, trans sister. Her name is Lux Pascal. And those conversations are what is going to make the world better for people like Lux Pascal. The Gina Caranos of the world are persuadable. We can reassure them. We can work with them. I truly believe she has no hate in her heart. I think she has a lot of pain. And that's different. You can disagree with me. I could be absolutely wrong. See, I'm not certain. But I do think it is worth trying with people who may just have some hesitations. Who may say, you know, as one commenter did, what is it here? You can use they pronouns if you like. I just won't know who you are talking about, but that's your choice. The line is crossed when people demand that other people use those pronouns. And I do think that this is something to be an ongoing conversation. I know when it's preferred pronouns and it's a list of 3, pick one. That's not a demand. A preference is not a demand. And very few people that I have dealt with in real life demand you call them it. That's why I brought up the fact that I won't use that pronoun, even though some people identify that way. I will use they, them. That was the context I brought that up in. And it's not true that you don't know who you're talking about, because if there's 3 women and it's like she, it doesn't solve the problem. So that's an emotional reaction. I'm sorry, commenter. It's an emotional reaction. It is. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, Language changes. We don't go, thou doth protest anymore. Thou is a fucking pronoun. We don't use it anymore. Pronouns change. Is it exhausting? Yeah. Have people pushed too hard? Yeah. But I really do believe that the claims of demand are overstated and a parroted talking point. I'm just pissing everybody off this video. That's what I'm gonna call this video. This video is guaranteed to piss you off about something. But this is what I truly believe. And if you actually listen to what I say, instead of just knee-jerking emotionally because you don't agree with me on a point, I think you'll see I make a lot of sense. And that's what's causing the emotional knee-jerk. Because women aren't supposed to talk this way, right? INTJ woman, it's a lonely place. I mask INFJ just to be slightly more socially acceptable. That's what I've determined. That's why I waffle on these tests. I have to really remind myself that feelings matter in decision making. And of course, one of the things that I get canceled for, considering the feelings of people who have different opinions from me, it's not a popular position. And that's why I want to leave on this comment. This is something I've been thinking about in my personal life lately, as a lot of family history colliding with the state of the world has led me to be more outspoken about things. If this goes on long enough, it will probably come to light. There are quite a few family relations I have that I frankly do not like that much. But I've realized that my long-held practice of keeping quiet was for their peace and comfort and not mine. But I'm vowing to myself that in coming out of my turtle shell, I will do my best not to fly off the handle or insult them, as much as a tiny quarter of my brain might get a mental sugar rush from it. Just because I don't like someone doesn't mean I therefore should let myself have bad manners. And that's a different way of saying, I say, and it's not therapy, don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. But it's also, I control me, they control them. Therefore, my behavior reflects me. Their behavior reflects them. And a thank you, I declined to have this conversation is much better than calling somebody a whole bunch of names. And mental sugar rush is a great way to put it. So, you know, we'll see who takes this video in the spirit it was recorded in. Rewarding a delightful XCOM reference. We'll see who can handle a nuanced, authentic opinion instead of just saying the right thing, because I don't believe in saying the right thing. We don't know the right thing when something's so uncertain. We only know what we believe. We only can deal with the facts we have at the time. We'll see. You know, I control me, you control you, right? This will be interesting. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you're still calm. Deep breaths. And have a great weekend. Like and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video and you can't drop some bucks. Thanks for watching.